But somehow, the warrior, Mike Perry, the more you hurt him, the more powerful he becomes. He's like the Incredible Hulk or the Emperor from Star Wars. You strike him down, the more powerful he becomes. And that's what happened. That's what happened in the fight. What is up, guys? I saw that TRIAD fight. Did you guys see the Triller TRIAD fight? As I stated in a video before, I don't really go outside of the UFC too much, but you know, Mike Perry, I'm in. Frank Mir, I'm in. I did see the Logan Paul and the Jake Paul fights. You know, Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley. Those are interesting and weird. I don't know the legitimacy of Triller. And because I'm hearing things like Jake Paul's not taking any tests for performance enhancing drugs and stuff like that. So if they're not testing, how legitimate is it? You know? And I also heard something like in their contract, Tyron Woodley wasn't allowed to knock out Jake Paul, but Jake Paul was allowed to knock out Tyron Woodley. If you guys know if that's true or not, let me know. If that's the case, that's dishonest. They're not telling us all the rules of the game, and that makes it not as fun. You know what I mean? If it's already premeditated or arranged to where one fighter or one competitor has an unfair advantage, I'm not as interested in that. I like the sport of it. And UFC seems to be sticking to the sport of it. Sure, the UFC alters the narratives and creates narratives and kind of shows different behind the scenes things that builds up and hypes a fight the best they can. But they're not creating like unfair advantages for different fighters, at least as far as I know. I'm sure they probably have before and do and will again, but for the most part, I don't think it's a common practice. So what did you guys think of this Mike Perry fight with, what's his name? Michael Seals. So Michael Seals is a boxer. He comes out there, he's like doing his walkout, and then they say his record, and me and my friends were like, oh crap, Mike Perry may have made a mistake, because this dude's record was like 21-3, right? And he was built like a Spartan soldier. But then again, Mike Perry is too, like a short version, like a little tiny Spartan soldier. But anyway, Mike Perry came out, he came out with a really good game plan. He closed the distance and kept the fight close, so Michael Seals couldn't use that 11-inch range on him. So Mike Perry kept it close, and he won through the point system. Although I do believe in the second round it was, Mike Perry got knocked to another dimension, and you could see it all over his face. All of a sudden, in an episode of Quantum Leap, Scott Bakula showed up, and they're back in time eating pie in a cafe with Elvis Presley. But in reality, Michael Perry was not back in time eating pie in a cafe with Elvis Presley. He was in the TRIAD, and he was just knocked unconscious while standing up. But somehow, the warrior, Mike Perry, the more you hurt him, the more powerful he becomes. He's like the Incredible Hulk or the Emperor from Star Wars. You strike him down, the more powerful he becomes. And that's what happened. That's what happened in the fight. It was kind of funny though, because when they announced that he was the winner, he looked really surprised. He did his O face like, Let's talk Frank Mir. Me and my friends were excited to see Frank Mir. We didn't know what to expect. But Frank Mir came out old and slow and fat. It sucked. It really sucked. Frank Mir looked like he has spent the last 10 years of his life smoking cigarettes, drinking beer, eating cheeseburgers from McDonald's, and sitting on his couch and watching YouTube videos about how many hamburgers you can fit in your mouth. That's what it looks like he did. Instead of training, that's what it looks like he did. And then was like,
You know what? I think instead of eating 35 hamburgers tomorrow, I'm going to fight in Triller.
and I'm going to fight some crazy boxer that I know nothing about. So that's exactly what I think happened. And it's no bueno. All right. I don't know the promoter's name of Triller, but let's talk about him for a second. The guy that had the really thin hair, like pulled up into like a pompadour so it would cover all of his thinning and balding spots. I'm not hating on the guy. I think it's cool that he's adding to the fight industry, but his attitude and the way he comes off
sucks.
Did you see the part where he's like,
You know, we invited Dana to come out to our event so we could show him what a real promotion looks like.
dude, really? First off, let me stop you there. With how many problems you had with the event, the live event, and the production in general that was visible to the public, to the watcher, to us, the audience, you can't go making statements like that because
You didn't knock it out of the park that hard, bro. You didn't knock it out of the park that hard.
your AV guys were dropping the ball. The fighters, the refs couldn't hear the announcers announcing who won the fight. You had referees who didn't understand the rules, you know, and we're talking about a professional, Dan Mergliato. You know who I'm talking about, the referee. He's a professional. He's no slouch. But you guys didn't educate him on the rules because he's stopping the fight when they're in the clinch and they're allowed to clinch. And then there's a point where the co-main event, one of the co-main event fighters, I think his name was like, I'm not even trying to remember his name, but he was putting the guy in an arm lock and Dan Mergliata split it up. But it was allowed. Even the dude's coach was like, hey, that's a legal move. What are you doing? So it's interesting that they're starting this new thing, you know, this triad and this triangle octagon where they have new rules. And it's like boxing with MMA gloves and clenching is allowed. So I don't know. And I don't know the legitimacy of the organization. I know they're selling it like it counts on your professional record and what have you, but I don't know how their contracts are. I'd be interested in knowing what their contracts are like. If anybody could leak that to me, that'd be awesome because I want to know. I'm intrigued with the business side of things. I want to know what you guys thought of the Triller Triad event. Metallica was cool. That was a flawless performance from Metallica, and even the AV guys were on their money with that. You know, they didn't mess that up at all. So that was good. There was a lot of good, but the promoter definitely shouldn't be coming at Dana saying those things. And I know why he's doing it. It's marketing. He's doing it because he wants Dana to be like Triad. I don't know what Triller and Triad and this triangle octagon is doing. But the whole time, if Dana is saying these things, he's saying it to his audience, which is also educating Dana's audience about the Triller Triad fights. So it's kind of smart, but it's also kind of bullyish and asshole-ish to do, you know? It's not nice. But then again, it's the fight business, and the fight business isn't nice. So there's that. Yeah, let me know what you guys thought of the Triad fights in the Triller event. Did you like it? Did you buy it? Will you buy it again? I think I will, because I'm curious enough about it. And if they keep throwing interesting fights, then I'll be there. Please, no more fights like Holyfield. When I purchased the fight app, the fight subscription or whatever, they had two sections. They had two categories that you could buy. One is their Triller fights with, like, you know, Jake Paul and music and stuff like that. And then they had another one that they're calling like legendary fights or whatever. And they're pulling all these old retired fighters out of retirement that shouldn't be fighting anymore and building people's names off of them. And I don't like that. You guys saw Holyfield get knocked down by Vitor Belfort. Like, seeing an old man get beat up by a younger man, that's just cruel to me. It doesn't seem entertaining. I don't know what to say about that. And then you also have Frank Mir getting knocked into another dimension by that boxer. And I've never seen anybody get knocked out while standing up on their feet still. And I guess that's what it looked like. It looked just like a video game. It reminded me of a Mortal Kombat game. You know, when they're stumbling around and it says, finish them. And the referee stopped him right before the boxer threw the chain with the hook on the end. It goes into Frank Mir's heart. He pulls the chain over to him, uppercuts him, and Frank Mir flies off the edge of a cliff, down the cliff, into a pit of spikes, decomposing skulls, and puddles of blood. So
That would be kind of cool.
but we don't really want to see that either, if you know what I mean. If you like the content, subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you think of Triller and the TRIAD events. Let me know what you think of events thrown where younger guys are beating up old men, and the other fights where YouTube stars are also exhibition matching with old men and retired used to be somebodies in the UFC and different boxing promotions. I don't know. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's weird. It's not quite a sport, yet they're still counting it as professional marks on their record. So what is this spectacle? Like, where is the line between spectacle and sport? I know it goes hand in hand, and it can go hand in hand, but there has to be legitimacy. There has to be standards. And if there's no USADA testing, and contracts can be written to alter the outcome of a competition, how legitimate is it? I don't think the UFC is doing that. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time.
Ring the bell.